Hello and most welcome to 1930. This is going to be a B version, as I said last time. That was an A of Wittgenstein's philosophical investigations by Paul Feyerabend. A good old Paul. And last time in 1929, we had a couple of good quotes. Philosophy becomes a battle against the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language. And it is not a philosophical method. That's also, and its aim is to destroy the houses of cards and to clear up the ground of language on which they stand. So it is about clearing out muddle paths. It is also to look beyond the surface of what language tells us. Go deeper. Penetrating the true meaning of language. And we came to think, at least I came to think of the voice of a friend, retold so many times from Derrida, that preemptively labeling it will make it less. Saying that it is the voice of the friend will make it less speaking, less talking. And here was one thing to be very careful about, and that's what you have in front of you now here on the screen here. Note now that in the preceding section, the idea of the essence has been reintroduced. In traditional philosophy, the essence was hidden beneath the various ways of describing it. Now it is the everyday use that has to be accepted. Essence is here not used in the same way as we are used to. So do look out. Essence here is the everyday use. There is no acclaimed vocabulary for philosophy, and it has a tendency to change after the wind. And of course that goes with the subject. Very hard to avoid. And the last I read last time is actually a very quotable thing. And seeing the world rightly means playing the language games without being troubled by philosophical questions or by philosophical problems. So we continue. And I'll repeat the note because I think it's so important. Note now that in the preceding section, the idea of the essence has been reintroduced. In traditional philosophy, the essence was hidden beneath the various ways of describing it. Now it is the everyday use that has to be accepted, is given. But this everyday use is likewise hidden beneath the house of cards of the philosophical theories. And then I will continue to read. And it too has to be brought to light.
Light.
Yeah, yes, indeed, to light. Just so, traditional philosophies, that is the adherents of theory T, try to bring to light the clear and sharp meanings which were hidden beneath the muddied use of the words which stands for them. If we assume now that in removing those philosophical coverings, we finally arrive at complete clarity. We assume that there is a sharp line between the houses of cards on the one hand and the language games on which they are built on the other. Now, while Wittgenstein usually criticizes the idea that, for instance, there must be something common to games, or they would not be called games. Games.
Yes.
And points to the fact that if we look and see, we find a complicated network of similarities overlapping and crisscrossing he seems to assume, nonetheless, that at least philosophical difficulties have something in common.
Come on.
Common! That there is a definite boundary between the card houses of philosophy and the solid ground of everyday language, such that it becomes possible to bring words from the metaphysical use to their everyday use. Hooray! To Wittgenstein, we can apply the comment which he used to characterize the adherents of tea. That a picture hold him captive. For if it is the use, the practice which constitutes meaning, if what has to be accepted, the given, is forms of life, then one may ask why Wittgenstein tries to eliminate theory T, which certainly must be regarded as a form of life if we look at the way in which it's used by its adherents. Counter-arguments, I like it. Adherents, its fans, its theorists. Nevertheless, Wittgenstein tries to eliminate this theory as well as other philosophical theories. But this attempt can only be justified by assuming that there is a difference between using a sign, playing a language game, and proceeding according to theory T. The procedures which are connected with theory T are supposed not to be taken as parts of a language game.
Yay.
They constitute a sham game which is to be destroyed.
Sam.
How is this attitude to be understood? I think we can understand it by looking at the ideas which Wittgenstein has about philosophy. And his picture of philosophy, as one might call it, using his own word. This picture is the picture of the Tractatus. The word philosophy must mean something which stands above or below, not beside the natural sciences.
Sciences.
Sciences. In the investigations, we may replace natural sciences by language games. And we arrive at philosophy must be something which stands above or below,
Below.
not beside the language games. Philosophy cannot be a language game itself. That, for instance, it cannot be theory Wittgenstein. I submit that this idea is still present in the investigations and that it makes it clear why Wittgenstein having found that a sign can only be meaningful if it is incorporated into a language game, cannot admit that there are philosophical theories. Theories! This observation, as well as others which have not been mentioned suggests that the investigations, apart from their substitution of language games for one language of the Tractatus, are, after all, not as different from the Tractatus as they seem to be at first sight. I am even inclined to say, without being able to substantiate this contention at the moment, that the investigations basically contain an application of the main ideas of the Tractatus to several concrete problems. The only difference being the use of language games instead of the language of the natural sciences, which form the theoretical background of the Tractatus. Trying to evaluate the book, we might say that the criticisms of T and the statement of T. Wittgenstein, which it contains, as well as the application of this theory to the discussion of concrete problems. For instance, remembering, obeying an order, the problem of sensation, etc., are a great achievement. Achievement, which, however, has its predecessors. Its predecessors. Proto-phenomenon, maybe. Here we are within traditional philosophy. But Wittgenstein wants us to see his criticisms in a different light. Light. In the end, we should forget them as well as tea. We should forget philosophy entirely. Entirely.
Tiny.
Oh dear. Although the formulation of what can be regarded as a theory, Wittgenstein or apostrophe, led us to the proper understanding of our difficulties. It must not be taken as the formulation of a theory, but only as a proper means of getting rid of our philosophical troubles. Troubles. This new idea, which is Wittgenstein's own, and which can be found in the Tractatus as well, is due first to that picture that philosophy must be something quite extraordinary, and second, to certain difficulties already mentioned, which could be solved by taking into account the difference between object language and meta language. Used by Tarski to get rid of similar difficulties, but never recognized by Wittgenstein. Using this device, we find that the philosophical language games do not necessarily disturb the language games they are supposed to describe. We also find that philosophy is not necessarily on a level with the language games it is about. 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 No. On the contrary, the assumption that the philosophical language games are on a level with the language games they deal with leads to contradictions. This solution would not agree with Wittgenstein's, but it would retain several elements of his philosophy. One, his criticisms of tea. Two, his statement of T. Wittgenstein. Three, his observation that language games may be disturbed by other language games which are supposed to explain or describe them. It would, however, interpret the statement of T. Wittgenstein as a special theory of meaning and formulate it by taking into account of the difference between object language and meta language. It would be possible to still to have philosophical theories and philosophical problems.
Problems.
Without being open to Wittgenstein's criticisms, except perhaps the one criticism, that the distinction introduced is purely artificial. And that ends my reading of Paul Feyerabend's philosophical investigations.
Hooray.
Hooray! It is finished. I will take some quotes of what I read, and then we can look through the whole paper of leading lines. On page 481. And it's so tricky here because the formulation of T sometimes are so close to the formulations of T. Wittgenstein or the purpose of Feyerabend Wittgenstein. Listen to this. Just so traditional philosophers, this third line of the first paragraph of 481. Just so traditional philosophers, that is the adherents of theory T, try to bring to light the clear and sharp meanings which were hidden beneath the muddied use of the words which stand for them. So you see how close the formulations are, and one needs to be careful. It is almost like we are stepping on mud as well. Wittgenstein, Feyerabend mentioned that the essence is in the surface of language, in the use. So there is, nobody should be blamed to misinterpret this. And this, I would say, is why Wittgenstein is such a hard read. It's the subtleties, small subtleties. And this needs to be taken by a pinch of salt.
Salt!
It's on the 8th line here. I'm happy that Kalle is recovering from his influenza. He's more happy now. Now, while Wittgenstein usually criticizes the idea that, for instance, there must be something common to games, or they would not be called games. Can you see the tricky there? Family resemblance versus the battle is between family resemblance and identity. That's a tricky one. But if we stir free from the demise of Scylla and Charybdis, just in between, then we will reach the goal of destroying or absolving the house of cards. We go to the second paragraph here. We already know from Tractatus, a picture held him captive. For if it is the use, the practice, which constitutes meaning, if what has to be accepted, the given, is forms of life, then one may ask why Wittgenstein tries to eliminate theory T, which certainly must be regarded as a form of life. If we look at the way in which it's used by his adherents. Isn't it so that theory T or philosophy T really looks like a form of life? We're changing things are happening. There seems to be understanding somewhere around at least. So it's pretty close, but still it is the theory T that is, as we read at the end of that paragraph, it doesn't bear meaning it is not cast in everyday use. The procedures which are connected with theory T are supposed not to be taken as parts of a language game. They constitute a sham game, which is to be destroyed. And that is the difference. Maybe we could compare to Sola Scriptura. That could be a language game that is on top of, for instance, the Bible, not inside the Bible, but something meta or above it. And maybe it has its own life, its own rules. By imitation or by truthfulness. Important questions. Important questions. If we go to the next page, if you may, Karen. The second paragraph gives us a reason to still cling on to Wittgenstein with our full force. Trying to evaluate the book, we might say that the criticism of T and the statement of T. Wittgenstein, which it contains, as well as the application of this theory to the discussion of concrete problems, remembering, obeying an order, the problem of sensation, etc., are a great achievement, a very great achievement. And I add that quantum mechanics and what we have muddied ourselves, so to speak, with in translation, reinterpretation, all those areas are in dire need of philosophical investigations. They reveal a misunderstanding at the very bottom of our language. It heals it. It makes it once more wholesome. The last page here, 483. About 8 lines down. This is, where is T placed? Where do we find T? T. Wittgenstein. Where can it be? Indeed. We also find that philosophy is not necessarily on a level with the language games it is about. On the contrary, the assumption that the philosophical language games are on a level with the language games they deal with leads to contradictions. And this is a specific problem of the meta level. This is very close to Gödel. Is the explanation of why it can't be consistent and coherent within the mathematics or the description of mathematics. This is one of these tricky things. I think in this case, I would suggest actually wholeheartedly our common device that we often use. It could be both. It could be complementary. It is both above in the sense that it is a T, and it's also inside, as T. Wittgenstein suggests. It is, however, an important question to ponder about. To ponder as much as you can, but don't give yourself a brain hernia because it's a difficult one. Do enjoy it. Now over to my dear colleague Kalle Lundahl here. Please enter.
Four hundred 80. The last paragraph on page 480.
Yes, that's tricky one. Good one, Kalle.
In traditional philosophy, the essence was hidden beneath the various ways of describing it. Now, it is the everyday use that has to be accepted, is given, but this everyday use is likewise hidden beneath the house of cards of philosophical theories. So how are we to understand this? In traditional philosophy, yes. And we could say that to apply to my own field, like biblical criticism, is that you try always to find the original.
Oh, yeah. Yeah!
And the essence is supposedly hidden.
In the original.
Yeah, yes, indeed. While what Wittgenstein wants is that the essence is in the game itself that is played. It's on the surface. It's how you play the game, so to say.
Yeah. It's nothing is hidden in that case, in the Wittgensteinian case.
You could say that the essence is in this new light Wittgenstein is in the ball, like that you throw to each other, and it's not. You can see the ball from different angles, but it's not hidden. Let's say it's not hidden behind the other side of the ball, but it's in the action, the very doing. That is the essence in the game. So I think this is a good formulation by Auerbach. Feyerabend.
Feyerabend, good old Feyerabend.
And then on the next page, you could ask about 5 lines here. Traditional philosophers tried to bring to light the clear and sharp meanings which were hidden beneath the muddied use of words.
Muddied use of words, like the muddied Bible.
And here you could ask if Wittgenstein is against etymology. Let's say for Heidegger, etymology was extremely important. But I don't think that you should think that Wittgenstein was necessarily anti-etymology method.
Tricky one there.
The thing is that another thing which is related to this is in this footnote here, 20.
Could you expand that?
Okay. So yes. So it's actually, I think the answer to this is I could actually take all the paper that we went through about 2 months ago. And this is extremely important, this paper. Not that I completely agree with this. It's by Affelt. Do you remember vaguely Affelt?
Yes, I do, yeah.
I open it.
Oh, very good.
It's opening here. So let me open bewitchment. Bewitchment. So you see all the in the title bewitchment. So let me open put it bigger. So you can understand this long phrase, and he discusses this, and he observes that this very last expression, this is the crucial thing, by means of language.
Oh yeah.
The English word order is rather free in this case. So you could, to make it clear, philosophy is a battle by means of language against the bewitchments of our intelligence.
Oh yeah.
This is the one interpretation. Or so the question is language the means that is your tool, a possible tool, or is it actually a mudding, an obstacle? And in my opinion, against Affelt, it's both possibilities are 100% equally true. It's both a tool and an obstacle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And if we take this solution as a tool, then actually etymology is also possible. Although, yes, we have to be careful there when we use etymology, because then it depends how living when you start.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I think that actually etymology, when the scholars use it, in my opinion, they do the mistake of focusing too much on the scientific etymology.
Yeah.
Instead, the popular folk etymology was more because the popular etymology is actually living.
It is. Hooray!
And there we have it, the
Whoa.
game, that is the language game. So when we think that, okay, Wittgenstein was anti-etymology. No, he was anti-scientific etymology. Instead, he would have been probably for the popular etymology, that is which is living.
How very interesting.
But for instance, to give one example would be the word grönsak, vegetable. And here you can actually hear in Swedish that grön, meaning green, is very living. We can play with it. So we have at some point given this definition to the vegetable, that it has to be something green.
Yes.
In this case, we could discard almost the tomatoes. But anyhow, it's a kind of tool that you can play with. And so forth. So therefore, so to return to Feuerbach, I wouldn't Feyerabend. Check out the footnote there, 20. One could say, footnote 20, one could say, 481, do you see the footnote there?
Yes.
So the last part, one could say that according to the investigations, the philosopher thought disguise is language. But now, yeah, I don't agree with Feyerabend, because philosopher thought disguise is language. No, it's both ways. It depends if you think if language is a tool or an obstacle. I think Wittgenstein says it's as both ways.
Oh yeah.
As we saw in this paragraph from panel 9. It is very both of means of language. And I think it's a very, 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 very clever double entendre by Wittgenstein.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, like that. Rather. Very good.
So I would say that actually on this point I don't agree with Feyerabend and not with most Wittgenstein scholars perhaps. But it needs to be deepened. Well, no. And but I do like. Okay, one last thing. I could continue, but let me only say that. Where is his conclusion? Let me see. He says the difference. 481. The only difference. Where is the only difference between Wittgenstein? Yes. No. I think it's a good observation by Feyerabend that the only difference between Tractatus is that Tractatus uses things that you must imitate scientific language.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
And
that
that's-
tendency. He was influenced by the Vienna Circle,
Mhm.
and well, he wasn't influenced by, but that tendency, definitely the Russellian and the Whiteheadian, definitely, yeah.
Let me see. Yes, yes, and this we could actually this observation of Feyerabend we can actually apply it also to humanities today. That is the illusion that by imitating natural sciences, you arrive at greater, what do you call it?
Accuracy and
Yes, yes.
truthfulness.
In which, instead, the solution is to use language games.
Well, I definitely agree. I need to make a correction there. It's not influenced by the Vienna Circle. It's influenced by the tendency that the Vienna Circle had as well later on. And because the mental reading process in this one is a very good example, but you can stretch that into all areas. What we talk about in artificial intelligence today, what is it to be conscious? It all seems to be becoming so obscure. And this is really actually a house of cards, because it's bound to crash pretty soon. The idea that the brain is the consciousness and it has this absolute disjunct, no connection to the world whatsoever. It's floating its own life, and human beings can leave the earth tomorrow and it would be like they've never been here. We still have a world. And you can see how this goes against the grain in quantum mechanics, where the observer and the observed together, involvement and interpenetration, then the world comes forth, then things happens. And as we mentioned in this whole series, alla Fia, the Norwegian coastline and the water together in the liminal zone. This is where truthfulness springs to the forth. All these things are very helpful, are very helped by the incessant movement we find in Wittgenstein's philosophical investigations. And I would add most of his later books as well. Zettel, the Brown Book, and so forth. It's a very valuable thing. And finding something that also helps quantum mechanics and superposition makes it precious. Any last thing you want to add, Kalle? Well, I say thank you very much. It was a pleasure going through Feyerabend's Wittgenstein's philosophical investigations. And I'm so glad we brought humor into the whole thing. I'd say it would be impossible to understand these subtleties if you get too serious. It will not really happen. So humor is of great essence, just as the late Edward Bono said. he had a point there.
Mm.
I say thank you everyone for listening and watching in. Have a beautiful morning, day, or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye bye for now.